Up+Adam.
Tractor systems are offline.
We are Beyond FM.
Beyond FM.
The future of broadcasting is here.
Up+Adam with Adam Montiel. It's community content from Concentrate. It's Up+Adam with Adam Montiel.
Some say life is where it begins. Straight to the stars is where it ends. Yes, some say life is just where it begins. Straight to the stars is where it ends. Only to start again.
What's up? Thank you for being Up+Adam. My name is Adam Montiel. True Crime Tuesday. First, don't forget your chance to win. If you have not, go to adammontiel.com right off the homepage. Tickets to Paso Wine Fest. May 18th, Saturday. It's going to change your life. Oh, the event will so change your life and the way the psychological and emotional spatial awareness to how you relate to this planet will be modified. It'll be improved once you attend Paso Wine Fest. Win your tickets, adammontiel.com. Also, if you want to buy them, I don't blame you. Get in there. There's also a lot of great events in and around Wine Fest. I'm going to be a judge for Paired Paso. This is where you have chefs and wineries teaming up to make dishes. And I'm going to be judging. Listen to the judges. This is going to be so cool. Going to be hanging out with Rachel Ponce of Pair with Chef Rachel. Been on the show a bunch, good friend of the show. And then Michelle Barrera of Enjoy Slow. So the three of us as judges, like sounds like a blast. Paired Paso. Look any and all events up for Paso Wine Fest. Go to pasowine.com. Heck, they got their own website, pasowinefest.com. You can check that out too. It'll all take you to the same stuff. But again, you want your chance at winning tickets to the big grand tasting on Saturday, May 18th. Get to adammontiel.com. Win right off the homepage. All right. True Crime Tuesday. This is a local story. This is a heavy one. On the night of September 14th, 2019, 21-year-old Thomas Jodry fell from the Marsh Street parking structure downtown SLO. Now, what was first ruled a suicide quickly began to unravel as something far more complex. Tommy's parents, William and Mary Jane, say the official story doesn't match the facts or their instincts for that matter. They believe someone knows a lot more, and there's a man, a much older man, who was closely involved with Thomas in the days leading up to his death. He's not been charged. I don't know if he's officially been named by authorities, but if you've been following the story and if you follow the digital breadcrumbs and just trust your gut, his shadow in this is hard to ignore. So later in the show, the Jodrys are going to join us to share what they've uncovered, the questions that still haunt them, and where's this fight for justice? Where does it go next? You don't want to miss this conversation, a local True Crime Tuesday with Mary Jane and William Jodry, the parents of Thomas Jodry and the creators of justiceforthomas.com. That's later on in the show. Before that, have you gotten your real ID yet? The TSA has been warning everyone that they need to get a real ID for years, and it keeps getting put off. And then I think the pandemic was like, okay, you have more time. And this time, I guess they're not postponing it anymore. They're serious. So the TSA says if you don't have a real ID by tomorrow, you better get to the airport at least 3 hours early. Damn. Because you'll be subject to delays, additional screenings. Even then, it's not even guaranteed that you'll be cleared to fly. A real ID driver's license has a star in the top right corner. It shows that you've verified your identity with additional documents. Now, why do we have to do this? Well, because they watered down our driver's license and started just making it rain, giving them out to basically anyone, everyone. So starting tomorrow, Wednesday, a regular old driver's license will no longer be enough to board a flight. If you don't have a real ID, you'll need a U.S. passport. That'll work. A global entry or nexus, a permanent resident card, a border crossing card, a foreign government issued passport, or a veteran health ID card. If you don't have one of those, get to the airport as early as you possibly can and bring as many other IDs with your photo as you can. I mean, shoot, bring your Costco card. Bring what you got. And if you aren't flying again until the summer, arrange to get that real ID. Alrighty, and finally, pour one out for an old digital homie because Skype is officially done. After 21 years of pings, awkward frozen video calls, and that unmistakable ringtone. Love it or hate it, there it is. Microsoft is finally pulling the plug. Yep, as of right now, you try and use the Skype app, it just takes you to Microsoft Teams. Microsoft's been slow walking this shutdown since 2020 when they first started whispering, what if you just tried Teams instead? Well, now that whisper is a full redirect. So if you've still got Skype installed for nostalgia, you can go ahead and delete it. Give me that ringtone one last time. Quick thanks to Dow Vineyards for being Up and Adam. They just dropped something cool they call their Taste of Luxury. These tiny vials. You get to sample their top tier wines like Patrimony, Soul of a Lion, in these sleek 100 ml pours. Check it out. Learn more. DowVineyards.com. And just make an appointment. Get up there to the mountain to taste, eat, check out the food, the people, of course, the wines. DowVineyards.com. All right, before we get into our chat with William and Mary Jane Jodry, this weekend, Paso's Downtown City Park is about to smell real good. The 4th annual Olive and Lavender Festival, Saturday, May 10th from 10 to 4, completely free. The Olive Festival has been going on 21 years, Lavender, 17 years, and 4 years ago they collided for one perfect excuse to get outside and taste your way through all kinds of local olive oils, farm fresh lavender, everything. If you could put lavender in it, they do it at this thing. So check out where the magic happens. Hamby Farm's bringing out a live copper still to show you how they make it down to like distill it into essential oils. Pretty cool. Again, totally free, presented by Sunshine Olive Oil. Get all the details. PasoRoblesDowntown.org. Olive and Lavender Festival this Saturday, May 10th. Check it out.
It's Up and Adam with Adam Montiel.
All right, my guests today, William and Mary Jane Jodry, the parents of Tommy Jodry, 21-year-old man who died after falling from a downtown San Luis Obispo parking structure in the early hours, September 14, 2019. The police originally called it a suicide, but the story they were told and what they felt that night never sat right. They remember the unease, the silence, the phone that kept going unanswered, and then a knock at the door. It was a man named David Knight, much older than Thomas, holding their son's phone in his hands with blood on it. The same man who would later sit in their living room, saying he lost track of Thomas earlier in the evening and coldly telling Mary Jane's brother he's dead, talking about Tommy. Since that night, the Jodrys have been fighting to understand what really happened. Their wrongful death suit was dismissed, so the system has moved on, but they in no way have. Today, they're here to talk about the moment that changed everything and the truth that they still believe hasn't been told. Let's welcome William and Mary Jane Jodry, Up and Adam. Well, thanks for being Up and Adam, both of you. It's great to see you both again.
Yeah, it's
so wonderful to see you.
Yeah, it's great to catch up.
And I love this cute little office you're in.
This is the Timbre Lobro Studios. Yeah, it's pretty nice, huh? We could pull up a glass or something. It's got it all.
It's gorgeous. Yeah, and you look natural in here, and you know it's just really nice.
Thank you. I think we go back many years. I think one of our first conversations was in my backyard.
Yeah,
Yes.
Remember?
I do
During
remember.
the pandemic and stuff.
That's gosh.
I mean, that's like 5 years ago. It's
The
crazy.
world was weird.
I know, and it's still a little weird.
Yeah, it
But
is.
nonetheless, it's great to see you guys here. It's great to have you here at the Timbre Lobro Studios. And you know, you're the website, and we hear the phrase a lot, Justice for Thomas. It's on the website, the signs, the TikToks, but slogans are public. What I'm curious, like when you hear the phrase Justice for Thomas, what does it actually mean to you both today? Not really so much in legal terms, but in the language of a mom and a dad.
Well, that's a big mom question.
Well, actually, I thought about this earlier. We're still seeking justice in Tommy's case because we're still getting information. And I know that, we're going to get there one of these days. We also are seeking safety, public safety for the public in not having this particular situation happen to them, and also in the parking structures, that we don't have any more deaths in those parking structures in San Luis Obispo, because there have been many.
Now, when we go back and we've, in the narrative, I kind of gave the lowdown quickly on what happened, but there's so much to this case, and we're going to get into like where things are at the latest. But when did this stop being feeling like an accident and start feeling like something wasn't adding up?
I think my wife was on top of it day one. She was focused on the fact that nothing seemed right. It didn't make sense. And the man that was with my son that night, David Allen Knight, when he comes to the door after my son died and shows up at our house when I'm frantically trying to call him on the phone, and I said, "Where's Tommy?" And I've been trying to call him, and he says to me, "Well, I have his phone." And I said, "Well, what are you doing with his phone?" And he said, "I found it on the ground. He must have dropped it." Right away in my head, I'm like, well, how would you know that was his phone if you found it on the ground? It didn't make sense. So I would say it was pretty early on.
It was early on.
Well, it was right away because I was sitting with David Knight on our sofa, and he was trying to listen in on my husband's conversation. He told my husband to call Sierra Vista Hospital. And my husband happens to work there. He's worked there for 43 years. And it would have been the place he called anyway because major, just traumas are taken there. And while I was sitting with David Knight on the sofa, he was trying to eavesdrop on my husband.
Like in the next room?
Yes.
Like kind of like walking over, sticking his ear out?
So I was talking louder and louder to him and asking him questions about the evening. And he grimaced at me and he snarled at me and he said, "I'm trying to eavesdrop on this conversation." And
he got all
oh my gosh, yes. And I knew right then and
that's a reaction, isn't it?
Yes. There was something going on here.
It was awful.
And then the next thing I could hear,
like this evil's in your house as you're finding this news out.
Exactly. And I just looked at him and I said, "Yeah, me too." And then right then and there, I could hear Bill say, "Oh my God, Mary Jane, they couldn't save him. They couldn't save him." And I just started screaming and I started pounding up my arms on the sofa. And I was just in a rage. I just was
so upset.
Yeah.
She just lost her son.
Yeah. And so Bill came in there and his reaction was to cover me, and the two of us were just screaming and shouting
and crying.
Yeah.
And then I thought, how is this guy reacting?
You thought that right then?
After it was about a minute or so.
Yeah.
And he was still sitting there. So
sitting in the same room
awareness of
observing
this evil person still sitting there. And I looked up at him.
Like just to be in the moment with him while you find that out with his. I mean, I can't even imagine how just twisted. What a storyline that is.
And by the way, the phone had blood on it. Okay. So
you knew this was blood then? Like was it like a blood? Or
well, as we were examining it the next day, I mean, we didn't automatically right away. Yeah. Okay, things.
But there was traces of blood on this phone, and that's definitely something up. Yeah.
So anyway, I'm sitting there looking at him, and I said, and he's looking at me with his eyes wide, and his head is going from side to side, and he's looking at us with fascination. And I thought, wow, what a creep! And so I got up. And I don't know, I heard my husband talking to him, and I went into our bedroom where we had an extension phone. We still had landlines at the time. And I called my brother. And my brother had just had a heart attack 2 months before. So I said, "Hey," I said, "Glenn, can you get here immediately? The worst thing that ever happened in our lives."
How far does he live?
2 blocks.
Okay.
And I said, "Please get here right away." And my brother was there within 2 minutes. And my husband had told David Knight to leave. And he was getting up to leave, and my brother came in the door. And my brother looks at him up and down, and he hears all the screaming, and he's trying to figure out what's going on. Commotion. He's very confused.
Yeah.
And he's looking at this guy, and he says, my brother demands of him, he goes, "What's going on here?" And he goes, "He's dead." And
that's what he said. He's dead.
It's dark.
He yells it.
He yelled it. Yeah.
And then my brother was just like, "Oh my God!" And he just
he's still taking this in.
Can you imagine walking into that?
Did you tell your brother on the phone what had happened?
No.
You just said it's the worst thing ever.
Yes, because of his heart attacks.
Of course.
I just needed him there, and I didn't want to make him have another one immediately.
Of course.
I thought, this is going to be hard enough for him to get over here, worried about what's happening to us. And then all this is going on, and my brother looks at him again. He goes, "What's happening here?" And David Knight puts his hands on his hips, and he gets a really ugly look, and he looks at my brother, and he goes, "He's dead."
Oh my God.
And just like that, and my husband looked at him, and he goes, "I thought I told you to leave. You can come back tomorrow and tell us your story." And he goes running to his car. My brother watched him, and he says, he goes, and then he came in and asked us what was going on, and we had to tell him the story and the thing about the phone. And first of all, everybody, when they heard that he brought the phone, thought it was very strange. Why would Tommy be without his phone?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, I told him we had to get to the hospital, and I said, please, let's all just get us there to the hospital. I can't drive. And so my brother drove us. And then when we got to the hospital, my brother felt like he was going to have another heart attack. And he called his son, and he said, you need to come pick me up because I can't drive home. And anyway, it just turned out to be this. And the police asked us when we got to the hospital, how did you know to come here? We didn't call you.
Yeah.
How did you know about this? And we told him. This guy showed up.
He knows everything.
He knows
literally knew what happened. And you almost wonder, would he go? What's the reasoning behind, coming to your house to show you the phone, to tell you to call the hospital so you can find out this news about Tommy and him experience it? You almost wonder if there was some sick desire for him to watch you take this in.
I definitely think that.
I
And
agree.
then in the years...
Have you thought of that before?
Yeah.
He just he was a spectator of it.
This guy's...
And he stood around and watched the scene. Didn't he stand around and watch the scene at the garage
scene.
too?
Yeah.
Wasn't it just scenes?
Yeah.
Just
And
kind of watching?
And
we
he's-
found that out later, yes.
Yeah,
But he did kind of tell us when he was at our house. He says, I sat there and he goes, I couldn't find him. He ran off and he changed the times on when he lost Tommy and everything else so that people couldn't go and investigate. But he did tell us that they had been at the Frog and Peach and that he bought Tommy a lot of drinks.
Let me ask you a question, and I don't even know how to ask this or how you're going to answer this, but is it harder knowing how you lost your son, or is it harder not knowing the full story?
It's harder.
Not knowing the full story.
Yeah,
We
it
know.
is.
We know. At the time, we knew very little. And because there wasn't much of an investigation done on the police's part, it was up to my wife and I to do all the investigating. And we spent a couple of years looking into this. And we tracked down witnesses and all that other business. And we were able to put a story together and find out what the sequence of events that happened that night. So it's much better knowing.
And we had help to the tune of a lot of
people helped
about
us.
a few $100,000 of opening a civil case and doing investigations.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. But I'm curious, if accountability knocked on your door, what truth have you been waiting the longest to just hear out loud?
To find out what happened the minute Tommy fell. We know David Knight went to the parking structure because Tommy...
was he running after him? Did he push him? Did an accident happen in the moment and he fell?
No witness.
And why didn't, if David Knight felt so bad about it, why didn't he help him when he could have? Because there was a period of time when Tommy fell in the middle of the street and became unconscious.
Right.
And a witness who called 911 said he's shaking him and trying to get him awake. And then she said, it seems like this young man's afraid of him. But she goes, it looks like he's just trying to help him. And so she had been following them, and she was the first one to call. And she had a very long conversation with 911.
Now, normally when you hear of a story or a case getting dismissed, you chalk it up to, there's nothing there. It doesn't deserve to be here. That's why it was dismissed. But your civil suit getting dismissed still has a lot of regular thinking people asking a lot of more questions and scratching their head what went just so that something like this wouldn't even get, more into those statute of limitations that we talked about off the air and all kinds of things. What do you see as the public's role now, especially with the courts dismissing that wrongful death case against this man?
Well, we've always felt, and we have everybody on camera, the people that were on there initially, and the cameras that we have are the police cameras and their cars and their personal cameras.
Oh, like their chest cams?
Yeah, when they arrived at the scene, and all those people that were there that never called in to say what they saw. And even though there were a couple of witnesses that offered some information and they were dismissed, I would like for them to call me back again and say, hey, this is what I saw, this is what happened.
Did it feel like just another hurdle when you heard that news of the case being dismissed, or did something really break in you?
I was pretty broken for a long time. How about you, Bill?
We were in shock. I mean, we couldn't believe it was dismissed just like that because we had so much evidence, and had we had the police report from when they reopened Tommy's case and they reinvestigated it, because we had turned everything over to the police, and the new detective determined that David Knight should be charged with manslaughter. And he had all of his reasoning explained in his report. And he submitted to the DA. Unfortunately, he submitted it to the DA 3 months after the statute of limitations ran out, so the DA couldn't prosecute him. And that's another story, but that was very important. Had we had that information for the civil case, we could have approached the judge with that and said, listen, the police feels like he should be charged with manslaughter based on this criteria. We did not have that till just shortly after the case was dismissed. Otherwise, I don't think that case would have ever been dismissed.
You think he knew something was wrong that night?
Oh, yeah.
For
That's
sure.
why he was running
sure.
away from him.
Even in an inebriated state, you think he felt unsafe?
Oh, definitely.
Well,
Definitely.
we have the videos from the Frog and Peach, and when David Knight tried to hit on him by pulling him by the hat towards his crotch.
Twice.
Tommy pushed, and he said no.
Yeah.
And you could tell that Tommy was very upset. Then you can see Tommy looking towards the door. He was planning his escape. And then David Knight tries it again, and then Tommy gets up and leaves.
He takes his hat off first and slams it on the thing.
He does, yeah. And he turned his hat around backwards so that he couldn't do it again. And he just had that look of, I'm leaving. And he did. Tommy did leave.
Plus, in that video, when David had his Tommy before he left, after the first time he did it, when Tommy's looking towards the door, David Knight switched drinks with them.
Really?
Yes.
Several times during.
It's obvious. You see him. Tommy's got his head this way. David Knight switched drinks. Now, David Knight had constantly been toasting him, okay? And Tommy would go cheers and put his drink up and click and put his drink down, right? And then David Knight was trying to get him to drink that drink, and he'd toast him again and again. But whenever David Knight toasted him, he would put his drink near his mouth, but he would never drink out of his own drink.
Yeah.
And then he finally got Tommy to drink his drink.
And he
right?
automatically switched.
And then when Tommy turned his head, he switched drinks. So David Knight never drank out of his drink, and he switched drinks with Tommy after
You
Tommy.
could see this on a camera, like so devious and so...
And I'm like, didn't the police see this?
Yeah.
You know, did they not look?
Yeah.
And that's a lot of what we submitted when they reopened the case, is we submitted that kind of information because we had it all written out for them.
You know, some of the loudest truth tellers on this recently, they're not the cops or the lawyers, they're creators. They're folks on TikTok. You know, how does it feel to watch strangers become investigators, advocates, believers, little sleuths on their own?
Well, what makes you feel good is that these are total strangers, but we have shared a lot of information with them, and they look at it and they're like, how could this have never been prosecuted? Everybody says the same thing. How could this have never been prosecuted? Why is this guy still living 2 miles down the road from you?
Was that weird? Do you ever run into him at Vaughn's or
It's been
the
a long
gas
time.
station?
It's been a long time, but he usually comes by when we have a vigil for Tommy at the parking structures, or
And on Tommy's birthday,
He'll
drive by our house.
drive by?
he'll drive by our house.
Really?
Yeah.
And he'll always go by the vigils and give us a finger, and his sister, she's just as evil. They leave. He's left dead animals on our property, and people go, well, how do you know? How do you know it was him who left them?
Yeah, well,
number
first of all,
one-
there was a couple of squirrels that were hugging each other, and they don't normally die like that. Okay?
I mean, come on.
And then there was a baby squirrel just 2 weeks before that,
And
almost in the same area.
you're at your house.
Yeah,
and
the
so
bottom
this
of
guy
our
had to.
driveway.
So then after that, we had to put cameras in.
Yeah, that's good.
But who else would do that?
No,
I mean,
that's-
seriously, we don't
right.
have enemies.
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, you could say, how do you know he did that? Well, I mean, because I'm an intelligent
Let's say you
human
run into
being.
him at pump 6 at the Shell. Are you able to contain? I mean, you don't want to end up going to jail, but you also have
Exactly.
been desiring the thirst of justice for so long.
Well, first of all,
we
if you
can't
don't
do that,
If you
you
don't
know?
think we
Right,
haven't
yeah.
run these scenarios in our head a
of
million
course.
times.
Yeah, right.
But if I'm in a public place, and I don't care where it is, and I run into him, I would not have any qualms about sitting there and calling him for what he is. You know, he's a felony convicted child molester who's responsible for my son's death. And I'd say, do you want to serve this guy in your restaurant?
He's got prior convictions.
Yeah. You won't find it because he got it expunged, but we have the paperwork on it. So I can say that because I can prove it. I never say anything I can't prove.
Yeah.
But you were asking, how do we feel with people, you know,
yeah, no, sure. I was talking to like Alma Rose and a couple other folks on TikTok
I feel
who have adopted the
vindicated,
case. Yeah.
And I feel validated.
Good.
And a lot of people just don't, you know, they're just like, this is so obvious. And especially if we show them the videos and things like that, they're unquestionable. And that's why that detective at SLO PD came up with yes, they should be charging him with involuntary manslaughter. Mm-hmm. And just to, you know, back it up a little bit, I did actually tell the original detective, I said, can't he be charged with it? Because I researched it myself. And he actually videotaped me every time I went in there, and I'm asking him this question. And he says, well, you know, and this and that. And he didn't really do anything on that case.
He wasn't interested.
And so, that question had been tossed around before.
I think it's pretty cool, though, to see other people taking interest in it. I mean, I was talking, like I said, to that Alma Rose, and I think she even mentioned she talked to you guys. I'm sure people have reached out to you, and it's got to be cool to see strangers, you know, piecing together some of these disturbing patterns and seeing what we all have seen in this. What keeps you going right now, both of you?
What keeps us going? Well, we want to get justice for Tommy eventually. And the other thing is we just don't, you know, like I said, we want to prevent this from happening to anybody else. So prevention is a big thing that keeps us going, especially since we know it's such a bad situation. And then we also know that we want to make these parking structures safer. So it's a little bit of two things right now.
What about you, Bill?
I can agree with her because I know David Knight is still active. We've had 3 different people come to us and say he had tried grooming them, and our flyers had alerted them to his behavior, and they're like, hold it, this is a guy that keeps coming to my spot every week, and now he's buying me gifts, you know, and then other stories that I'm not going to share just to protect the other people.
Yeah.
And then, so our goal is always try to protect other people because people like him, they don't change. And he'll just keep doing it. He's been doing this in Atascadero for 40 years.
And San Luis Obispo.
And San Luis. And prior, we were told by his brother that they had to move from L.A. because he was molesting kids down the street when I was like 12 or something. All right? His brother came to our house and told us that. I know he probably doesn't appreciate me mentioning that, but this guy, David Knight, is a serial predator and child molester. Okay, and then the parking structure, it needs to be made safer. One person dying, falling from that parking structure for any reason at all should have been enough to make the city council say, we've got a problem here. Never mind a half a dozen people. All right. You go to other cities and they've got all kinds of decorative coverings over the openings, you know, between the wall and the ceiling so people can't fall. Sometimes one place we saw, they just had chain link. It works. It may not be pretty, but it works and it's not very expensive. And they could do it. How many people have to die? Now, my feeling here is they are very much aware that people have died falling from those parking structures for one reason or another. The reason doesn't matter. The fact that they fell and died or got hurt, that's what's important. But they continue to do nothing. What would make them do something? Would it be a lawsuit saying, hold on, you guys knew these things were unsafe, but you didn't do anything. So maybe because they met code at the time they were built doesn't excuse you for not doing something now when you know it's a safety issue. Is that what it would take, a lawsuit? I mean, we had no intention of suing them. We just wanted to make them safer, and we wanted to hold David Knight accountable. But is that maybe what it's going to take? And cameras? If there were cameras in there, we would know the answer to the questions, what happened at the minute Tommy fell. Okay?
It's so interesting because in so many structures, no matter where you go, there's cameras everywhere through those things.
Always. And then more security alarm things where you could pull a handle or pull something for help. I mean, they're there in the parking structure down on Choro and Marsh, but they're hard to find.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's funny because when I feel like I'm in a parking structure, I feel like I'm just inherently on camera. You know, I feel like you're being, like
You
Right, you
assume,
would
we
think
all
that.
assume that.
Yeah.
And they were very
from a
dark.
liability standpoint, right?
They put LED lighting in, so they have improved the lighting, and they had pulled all security out, and there was one security guard going from all the parking structures, but now they have security for part of the day, I think till midnight. But they're mostly hanging out helping people figure out how to do the pay thing. Which,
Right, the kiosk or something, right?
I mean, I think most of us could do that on our own if,
Yeah.
But they said, I did talk to one of them, they said they do make periodic rounds. So at least we know there's security. The chief of police had come up with an alternative camera plan, which was, I think more in the $50,000, $60,000 range versus the city manager was quoting millions for cameras and coverings, and we can't do that. Well, why not?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You just had this meeting where you told people you took in more money than you expected, so we can cut back the
Say
cost.
it's for DEI or climate change. They'll find the money.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So it could be done, and it should be done. And we need people to support us, because obviously in 5 years' time they told Mary Jane they were going to put cameras in. They still haven't done it. So we need people to get a hold of the city council and say, these are not safe. People are dying.
Yeah.
One was one too many. And you need to do something. So they could contact the city council, contact the city manager, or go to a city council meeting. We'll be there in the last city council meeting of this month, which is on May 20th at 5:30.
Yeah.
Come and back us up when we go talk. You get your 3 minutes. Take your 3 minutes and say, I don't go in the parking structures, and a lot of women don't, because I don't feel safe.
And if you don't want to go to the meeting itself, my husband has their addresses that you can actually email them to.
Yeah.
And what are those, Bill?
Well, you can do the group email. Apparently, you don't have to do it individually. And the group email for the city council members is emailcouncil@slowcity.org.
And I'll put this in the show notes, so there's easy links to it.
Okay, and the other one for the city manager is WMCDONA/@slowcity.org. Those are the most important ones.
The city manager and the city council.
Yeah,
Got
because
it,
city manager does the budget. He's a guy.
City manager does everything, right?
He's a money guy.
Yeah. Well, no, I think it's a gal now.
Money lady.
Yeah. No.
Money person.
Yeah, no, we had Derek Johnson, and he moved on.
Yeah.
So okay, good. So at least some things that we, as when we're listening here and kind of involved in the conversation, we can go, okay, what can I do? 'Cause
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of people going, okay, I'm vibing with you guys. I feel my heart breaks for you guys. I want justice for Tommy too. And although I feel like that, that big kick in the gut because the dismissal of the lawsuit, if there's other routes that we can figure out and help you, we want to do that.
Well,
Sure.
the other thing is that there are victims out there, and a lot of them have contacted us and say they were victimized by David Knight over a period of years. Sometimes we were the only person they've ever told. All right. But they were so upset when they saw the articles in the Tribune about what
Shame
happened to
involved,
Tommy.
maybe?
Well, it's embarrassing, and who wants everybody to know when it's a sex crime? You know?
I mean, honestly, I just did a 3-night event for Lumen Alliance, and sexual violence, sexual assault. I mean, they are just the way they seep into your psyche and psychologically affect you. It's really, and it can happen to although the numbers say it happens to women a lot more, it can definitely happen to men too.
Well, actually, I reached out to the Santa Barbara Rape Crisis Center during this. I was trying to put together
Information package.
Yeah. She told me, she said, actually, every night when we do the news, we do say that 1 in 4 young women has been sexually assaulted and 1 in 6 young men. But she goes, we feel that the number is much higher for young men.
Because they don't say anything.
She said because they don't say anything.
Yep.
And she said it's wrong because a lot of it has to do with upbringing. And we teach our young men incorrect things about what it means to be strong. And actually, it's not a sign of weakness to report that you've been assaulted. And we need to change that in our society.
Wow. Well, yeah, no, I mean, you're right. You would hope that people would go out and say something and get the word out more. What's the one question, Bill, that you still can't stop asking yourself?
Well, I mean, when you're a dad and when David and I came to my house, he had met Tommy at his cactus stand at our house, and we didn't know he had been texting Tommy nonstop for the previous couple weeks. Hey, buddy. Hey, pal. When we get together, they had talked art, and Tommy was a budding artist. The guy's like, I'm an artist too, and I got connections to the art world. I can help you market your art, you know. We didn't know a lot of that stuff. We didn't know about all these text messages where he was becoming his new best friend. David's 57, Tommy's 21. You know what I mean? I mean, really? And, you know, using language that young people use, you know. It was, when we saw the text message afterwards, it was pretty upsetting because it was so obvious what was going on.
Yeah.
But we didn't know.
But Tommy didn't know because, you know what? He was 21.
Yeah, he was-
and like a lot of 21-year-old guys, he's more like 18. Okay.
Yeah.
Not very mature. And, you know, David Knight was testing the waters, you know, and he'd say things like T-bone and all these horrible things that actually...
Nicknames.
If you look, there is a website that has... what these actual terms mean. And I can't describe this on air. This is not something that would be on primetime anything or even off time anything on anybody's television show.
But when he says to Tommy, hey, T-Bone, I really want to get together with you. You know, we really need to talk. I think people out there who are listening can figure that one out.
So our attorney did ask him, what did you mean by that T-bone thing? And, you know, David Knight just, you could see him kind of...
Squirming.
Yeah, squirming, but at the same time kind of enjoying it. And he goes, I don't know. I just called him that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's inappropriate thing.
Yeah, for sure.
On that one.
But it's just that you have to like learn these things in the months and years afterwards.
Yeah,
and,
you don't know.
like going through and
things that you never thought about. You know, it's not part of your lifestyle.
Right.
But I let Tommy, you know, I went down and the guy shows up on my driveway and I thought he was there for a cactus sale because Tommy had a big sale. And I says, can I help you with something? He says, I'm looking for Thomas. And I'm like, well, he doesn't always answer his phone. Let me go get him for you. So I go down and Tommy's on the phone with him. So he called him anyway.
Yeah.
And I wait for him to get off the phone. I said, hey, Tommy, some guy's up there. And Tommy goes, that's the guy who's going to help me market my art. We're going to go to Cal Poly and look at art today and talk marketing.
Yeah, so he was wooed by this, hearing that someone's interested in his artistic endeavors.
And going to help him out. He was so excited.
Help him market it.
Everything in his life seemed to be going his way. He just bought a 2001 Chevy pickup truck to start doing his cactus sales at flea markets. He just asked this young lady out who was going to start dating him. Now he's got
they
some
had
guy.
been dating all summer.
Yes,
Yeah.
and now he's got this guy who's going to help him market his art. I mean, what everything was going well, and so he was kind of excited. And then well, you know, I mean, I said, well, you know, I didn't get the guy's name. I didn't know anything about him. My son leaves with him, and 7 hours later, or 8 hours later, he dies. Or 7 hours.
It's so crazy how fast and how chaotic it got at the end.
How
what do you
could that
think?
be?
With the movement now and people saying his name and learning about his story, if Thomas could see what has been built in his name now, what do you think he would say about all this and the website and the interviews and stuff like that?
I think he'd say thanks.
Yeah.
What do you think? And he'd say, get that guy.
Yeah.
That's what he'd say. He'd say, get that guy. He said he's bad.
Yeah,
he's a bad person.
I would think that Tommy would really want the real story to come out.
Yeah.
And
He would.
For not only for himself, but I think he would know that this guy was inherently evil and that this guy had too much experience in this department to be the only victim, and that he would want this to not happen to anybody else.
You know, tragedy doesn't really leave you. It kind of carves you into something new. I'm sure you two know that more than anyone. How has this changed you, not just as parents, but as just people?
Well, I think that, you know, I'm always warning young people to be careful, you know. Whenever I tell Tommy's story, I warn them that this happens so often. So I also, I can't stop thinking about it. Yeah, I think about it every day. And it takes up so much of my day thinking about it. I think about the rest of my family, my friends, other things too, but it just never leaves me.
Well, I agree with her. You live it every day. And one of the things is, as you get older, you live through life, you go through a lot. And sometimes you get a bit jaded, you know? And when I was raising my kids, I said, I don't want to raise them to feel like life is, you know, with a jaded point of view, that that happiness is beyond your reach. You know what I mean? I wanted to raise them to be trusting people, to think that there's an inherent goodness in people, and that the world's a good, kind place. And then this happened. And then I'm like, God, did I teach them wrong? Should I have, I grew up in New York, so you grew up relatively street smart, you know what I mean?
Right.
And here I am, I moved to San Luis Obispo, and I think I'm raising my kids in a safe place. I met my wife here, we live in Atascadero. It's a nice family town.
Worked at the same hospital 40 years plus.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, being around a lot of good people. And this happens, and I'm like, was I not protective enough? Did I raise them to be too trusting? Was that a mistake? And it stays with you. You feel a level of guilt, and because you feel responsible, because it's your job to watch over your kids, no matter how old they get.
Yeah. Does something like this feel, you think you go through your life as who you are, and then you're married, your family, like this is you. And both of you from both of your insides feel this is me, But when something like this happens, do you feel like it tries to define you? Do you want it to define you? Or is there still all the other layers, and this is just part of it now? Or how does this define the person that you are in the moment?
Let's put it this way. Okay. You're a cow. Okay. And somebody comes and puts a brand on you with a really hot branding iron.
Yeah.
You were always that cow. Okay. And you were always living a happy life, just living out in the pasture, and everybody around you, these people, they were always really nice to you, but all of a sudden somebody came and branded you.
Yeah.
I think it leaves that mark on you. And no matter how many layers of the onion you peel off on this particular brand, it's still in there.
Yeah. That's probably the most perfect way to put it.
That was actually pretty good.
Yeah, that was really almost beautiful in a way. And just how you understand exactly what you mean.
That scar's always going to be there.
Yeah. Well, we have all the links. We'll put all these email addresses in the show notes. And of course, we have always contacted each other throughout the years and stuff. So I definitely, anytime you want me for anything or need me for anything, please let me know. And
the two things I didn't mention, I did follow up with the city council.
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah.
I told them I would go to Sacramento and ask for the money for the parking structures because they told me it was too expensive.
Yeah.
So I wrote to everybody, and Senator Laird actually reached out to me, and he met me in Atascadero at a coffee shop.
Wow.
And I had the Tribune, I had the Atascadero News, and I also had the Mustang News.
How'd that happen? You called all them?
I called them all because
wow.
they were in touch with me about various things. And I said, we're going to have this thing. And I said that he's going to talk to me about the parking structure. And he said, yeah, there is some money in the state budget. Maybe we can get some, I'll talk to the city council people. So I followed up with the city council people. This is after they met with me in a meeting. And they said, yeah, sure, go to Sacramento. And I let them know I did actually meet with them. And then I left the meeting, and Erica Stewart went running down the street after me, literally, and she said, hey, come back to the meeting. I have something to tell you. Then she said, we're going to start working on the cameras, the lighting. We're going to work on all the safety features for the parking structure. I left there elated, just thanking God and feeling like maybe that part of this would make things so much better.
Yeah.
And then nothing was done. And then somebody died in that parking structure just a few weeks later. But anyway.
A different one, right?
The one on Park.
Yes.
Yeah. But in another structure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And then, anyway, I was kind of depressed for a long time. I did end up going to the town hall meeting a couple weeks ago with Adam Schiff and also Salute Carbajal.
Yeah.
And I went scrambling over to Salute and introduced myself and explained in a nutshell what happened to Tommy. And he was shocked. And he actually seemed like he knew a little bit about the story anyway. And he said that he was going to, I said, you secured us $1 billion last year for San Luis Obispo County, right? And he said, yes, I did. And I said, can't just a little tiny bit of that go to these parking structures? He goes, yeah, and it probably wouldn't be that much. He said, sure, I think so. And I said, would you call Erica Stewart and Mrs. Dietrich and whoever the new city manager is and talk to them? And he said, sure. And then I gave his assistant all my information. Then I ran into another assistant at a Atascadero meeting recently, and she said she was going to follow up with that. So we're going to go to the city council meeting on the 20th. Right?
Okay, this month.
Yeah.
And if you'd love to see supporters there for you.
Yes. Yes, I think that we need supporters there.
You can also write in certain things that will be put into the record for support, I believe, right?
I'm not sure.
I'm going to learn more about that, because I think if people, even if they can't go to the city council meeting, I feel like there's been committee meetings where, even with the city, they're not even straight up legit city council meetings, but there were other city committee meetings where you can submit things that get put, quote, in the record. Oh. And then they get digested by, so maybe you don't have your voice on the thing, but at least it can get read by someone. And we want people just to represent. And if that's in person, that's any way they'll hear our voices. So we'll put all these links in there. Well, I can't thank you guys enough for the time. I've always loved, corresponding with you guys.
Thank you so much, Adam. You look great, by the way.
You're so sweet. Thank you so much.
It's been a few years, and it's nice to see you in person. I miss you being on Everyday Radio.
I know.
That was my favorite show.
Was it really?
Yes.
Well, yes. Yeah, it was fun.
So do you guys not do podcasts?
I have
we do
watched it, but
some.
It's a little challenging.
Alma, of course. Alma Rose, we listen to her, and
cool. Does she have a podcast too?
Yeah,
awesome. I just knew the account. I didn't know that.
No, she does them on a regular basis.
Oh, cool. I got to check it out.
That woman is so dedicated, and we've listened to Chris Lambert, and
of course, yes.
And then
he said he's talked to you guys.
He has. He set up Tommy's website just for Thomas.com.
And that's about all he did in our thing. But he is a really wonderful guy. And then of course we love listening to Dave Congleton. That's not quite. Would you consider that a podcast?
Well, I mean, it's live on the radio when it happens, but he
available by.
Yeah, you can also listen to it digitally too. So I guess you would consider that. Yeah, I mean, a podcast really just the ability to listen to something digitally on its own. A lot of people have the smart dashes in their car, so you could be washing your dishes in the sink, listening to something, pause it, get in your car, put it back on. You're never going to get commercials, at least on my show, just like random commercials from places that aren't here. You're not getting the filler of Garbage FM songs that you don't want to hear.
That's so nice. Yeah.
So it's literally people are coming for this content, and it's the future of radio. I'll be honest, radio's dying, print's dying, TV's dying. So what are you going to do? Gotta go to the future.
And those are all the things that I loved. I loved waking up in the morning with that print. We subscribed to 3 newspapers and a cup of coffee. And
see that? Well, that's probably been the biggest change for you.
I'd have the jitters by 10 o'clock, and I'd have all the
print
information.
has really changed. I mean, I always talk about radio changing. Print has really changed.
Yes, but I still love all these journalists.
Yeah,
I love Chloe Jones from the Tribune.
Sure, she's very talented. Do you ever go to Substack? Do you know Substack? Okay, so here's I'm going to open you guys up to something else. In the light of podcasts, consider a podcast is like the future of broadcasting. So much that it's beyond broadcasting, it's narrowcasting. So it's that incredible. It's literally on our phones, it's in our cars, it's everywhere. So that is a better thing to just terrestrial radio broadcasting. Well, beyond, because of the way that print and the news journalism and like print journalism has slowly died. Substack it's a website, it's also an app on your phone, but it is for the writers that you love. And I guarantee if you have some big writers from the Post, New York Times, wherever you like to read, the odds are they probably have a Substack. And if they're really popular, they might even have a paid wall that you pay $2, $3, $5 a month, and you get exclusive stuff all the time. There's some stuff for free, but Substack is a great way to find writers that you really, really respect. It's great. So I'll send you all these links
okay, please do. Yeah, and we do have a lot of writers from a lot of newspapers.
Yeah.
We love the New York Times. We love.
And you'll dig Substack.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's cool. And this is really the future, but it's being unfolded. Like it's being unveiled for us right now. I mean, podcasts last year, 22 was, I think, a $2 billion industry. This year, it's 4.5, 5. I mean, it's exponential growth.
That's awesome.
So, well, there you go. Well, I thank you for what you said about Up and Adam. So good to see you guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate you. Thanks for being Up and Adam.
All right, sure.
Thank you.
Some say life is where it begins. Straight to the stars is where it ends. Only to start again.
Wow. William and Mary Jane, thank you for sharing your story, being Up and Adam once again, and for your unwavering dedication to seeking justice for Thomas. For those who want to learn more, provide info, please visit justiceforthomas.com. Links in the show notes. Your courage, resilience are truly inspiring, both Bill and Mary Jane. All right, don't forget to get to AdamMontiel.com. It's where you can win tickets to Paso Wine Fest May 18th. AdamMontiel.com. And you want to get your tickets, PasoWine.com, PasoWinefest.com. Those links in the show notes as well. We told you earlier about the Olive and Lavender Festival happening in Paso this weekend. We're going to have Gina Hambley from Hambley Farms and Dominique on from Sunshine Olive Oil tomorrow. It's going to be a great show talking all about this local. These events have been going on a while. Lavender Festival, 17 years. The Olive Festival, 21 years. And then 4 years ago, they combined forces like Captain Planet to give us the Olive and Lavender Festival. 4 years this weekend in Paso. Don't miss it. We'll have the folks on from it tomorrow on Up and Adam. All right, thanks to Moonshiner Collective for original music on the show called Start Again. Check them out, moonshinercollective.com. Also stream them wherever you get your music. Thanks to you for rating, reviewing, subscribing to the podcast wherever you listen to it, and just telling a friend, sharing it with them on your phone. It helps a ton. Helps a lot of others discover what we're doing. Until tomorrow, I'm Adam Montiel. Thank you so much for connecting. I hope you have a great beginning to your week and a great rest of your day. And thanks for being Up and Adam.
Some say life is where it begins. Straight to the stars is where it ends. Only to start again. Let's start again. We'll start again. Let's start again.